How's it going, everyone? So I am getting ready to do some videos and such because of some upcoming stuff. I'm going to be covering Suicide Squad, and then after I see Birds of Prey this weekend, I'll come back, make like a reaction slash like review type video. It won't be as in-depth as my previous ones because I'm not committed enough to take a notebook into a darkly lit theater to take notes. Yeah. But when it comes out on DVD, I might do like a deep dive look into it again, maybe to kind of give it a second chance, because I don't think it's going to be that good. But today, just to kind of get a video out, I wanted to show off my spoils from the recent trip to the comic book shop. I went in looking for specific things, and I walked out with a lot more. So I just kind of want to show off what I got. So first up is the novelization of Marvel's Secret Wars. So this story is still expensive, so I have yet to pick it up on comic book form, but this was about $25, which is, I would say, a pretty typical price for a nice, newer hardcover book. So I've been collecting these for quite some time. I think it was back in 2014 or so is when I bought my first one. It was The Death of Superman. And I really enjoyed it because it was like, it's different from the comic books in terms of like perspective and like, a picture can only do so much, so like the description and how characters are acting and things like that. So that kind of kicked off my whole appreciation for novelizations of comic book stories. So I saw this one and I had to buy it because I know Secret Wars is a very big story in Marvel, and it was it introduced a lot of things from characters to Black Suit Spider-Man and just things like that. So I really wanted to pick it up. So that's the first one. The next one, Doomsday Clock. So this is DC's biggest thing, one of their biggest stories they've done recently. And so this one was to introduce Watchmen into the main DC universe. So the Watchmen have been owned by DC Comics for, quite some time. So they're finally rolling them into the main universe. Prior to this, they weren't even on like another Earth or anything like that. It was strictly a separate thing entirely. So they're now in the DC universe, and I read The Button, which was a Batman / like Flash crossover, and I really liked it. I thought it was pretty interesting. It introduced a lot of concepts like the Flashpoint universe not being destroyed and just things like that. So I'm excited to see where the story goes, and pretty excited to start reading it. This is just part 1, however. Part 2 doesn't come out till, I want to say, around April, I think. So when that comes out, I'm probably going to pick it up, or maybe I might wait a little bit. We'll see. So the next 4 are kind of like a combination type thing. So it's Marvel Season 1, which if you watch my comic book collection video, you would see that DC has something called Earth 1, which is like just kind of like a spin-off story, if you will, or a retelling of an origin story. And this is basically the same thing. So after the success of DC's Earth 1, Marvel decided they wanted to try something similar. So they launched 11 titles under the Season 1 like brand, I would say. And their goal was to capitalize on the success of this, like kind of like rebranding of a hero, if you will, and retelling of a story, the same way that DC did with Earth 1, because Earth 1 sold amazingly. But it didn't get off the ground with Marvel. I'm not entirely sure why, but so past these 11 issue number 1s, basically, the Season 1 franchise or brand didn't really go anywhere. So they're kind of hard to find. After they kind of flopped, I guess you could say, Marvel liquidated all of them. So Marvel doesn't actually have any more. So you either have to go find these at like bargain stores or like comic shops that just haven't sold them. They're not the easiest to find, and these are the only 4 I've been able to find. I know my dad was able to find some in the Texas comic shops around his area. But yeah, so that's Marvel Season 1. Those are some of the other books I found. And then, so I'm going to show this one next. This is Ion. So Kyle Rayner is one of the 4 Earthling Green Lanterns. And this was, I believe, around his introduction basically into comic books. So Kyle Rayner came in at an interesting time. Basically, the Guardians told him, or Ganthet more specifically, one of the Guardians, was like, hey man, the Green Lantern Corps isn't exactly around anymore. We want you to be the torchbearer. We want you to be the new dude running around with the Green Lanterns. So he was introduced basically at a time when no other Green Lanterns were around. and that was his whole thing. And as he had the power of Ion, essentially, which was later retconned into being one of the entities, the entity of willpower. So it explained why he was so powerful. But so I haven't read this one just yet, but I'm a big fan of Kyle Rayner, and I just wanted to pick it up. I saw it and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna buy that. So the next one. So what inspired me to buy this was my dad, who sent me a little Batman toys. I think I showed them off in my comic book collection video. They're just little figurines, and I was like, wow, I've never seen this version of Batman before. Let me go out and find it. So it's actually from a story called Justice. And if you know anything about comic books, you'll know that Alex Ross, this guy down here in the middle, is a pretty famous artist. He's known for this kind of like oily style of like drawing, or I don't know if it's drawing or painting, but whatever it is, it looks amazing. And so Justice was another story that he had worked on. I'd say the story is pretty old. I don't know exactly when it was made. I want to say the 90s, but I could be off on that. Now, I haven't read it yet, but from my understanding, it's basically the superheroes are, they're superheroing, but they're missing a threat. So what happens is, and you can kind of see that on the cover of number 1, it's all the heroes. And then volume 2, I think I don't know if it's volumes or issues, but because there's like issues inside. But so basically volume 2 is like all the bad guys. You can see, you got Joker front and center, you got Bizarro, you see Black Manta here in the corner, Cheetah, Sinestro, Captain Cold, all the various villains. So what happens is the villains get together in like a Legion of Doom-esque type thing, and they're like, the superheroes are missing the big threat, so let's go fight it. That's my understanding of the story. I haven't gotten to it just yet. And then this Batman right here is the toy that he sent me, and that's what inspired me to go out and find the series. And I'm glad I picked it up in 3 volumes as opposed to one big collection, because, that art is that's really good art. I love Alex Ross's art, and the different colors just look really, really cool, and I'm a huge fan. But yeah, that's it. That's my recent haul from the comic shop, and I'm really happy. I did find some of the stuff I went out to find. I picked up the Justice books. I got some Marvel Season 1, and then everything else is just more or less icing on the cake, So I'm really happy with it. I'm excited to dig in. I just finished reading last week, I believe is last week, Azrael Fallen Angel, which is volume 1, and I think I'm gonna make a video. Maybe I'll try to do it sometime this week, or I might end up making that this weekend. But I really enjoyed it, and if you can somehow find it to give it a read, I would really recommend it. It was really interesting, and I genuinely think it's one of the more interesting characters in the Batman mythos. But we'll get more into that when I go over the actual story. So yeah, just wanted to share my spoils with you guys, and hope you found this entertaining. See you next time.